When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he put this question to his disciples: "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say he is John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But you," he said, "who do you say I am?" Then Simon Peter spoke up. "You are the Christ," he said, "the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Simon, son of Jonah, you are a happy man, because it was not flesh and blood that revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. So I now say to you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the underworld can never hold out against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be considered bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be considered loosed in heaven." Then he gave the disciples strict orders not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. From that time, Jesus began to make it clear to his disciples that he was destined to go to Jerusalem and suffer grievously at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, to be put to death and to be raised up on the third day. Then, taking him aside, Peter started to remonstrate with him. "Heaven preserve you, Lord," he said. "This must not happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle in my path, because the way you think is not God's way, but man's." The Gospel of the Lord. So we've got two comparable incidents in the first reading and in our Gospel today, where two key men of God try and act out in following the Lord and are punished or at least rebuked quite strongly for it. We have first Moses and then we'll get to Peter in a moment, but Moses and Aaron, I suppose they're together in this. They go before the Lord and bring the complaints of the Israelites to him. They have no water. They think they're going to die out in the desert. And then the Lord says, "Go and speak to the rock and it will flow with water." So he goes and he stands before the people and says, "Do you trust in the Lord?" And then he hits the rock with his stick and it flows with water. So God's provided water. But if you've paid attention closely, you notice that he didn't actually do what the Lord asked him to. And so the Lord says, "Because you didn't believe that I could show my holiness, you will not lead the people into the Holy Land." So I think we can't underestimate how devastating a punishment this would have been for Moses and Aaron, who have been leading these people and taking them on this year's journey through the desert, all for the very reason of God's promise to bring them into the promised land. And then, just because of a slight difference of, instead of just commanding the rock to flow with water, he struck it with the stick, that Moses and Aaron are not allowed to, and of course they die before the people come into the Holy Land. So huge repercussions. But because I think if we consider that they didn't have the sense of the eternal Holy Land of heaven that God was leading us to, for the Israelites then, the land of Canaan that God had promised them was the gift that God was giving them. So to be denied that would have been huge for Moses and Aaron. But that's all I want to say about that for the moment. To come to Peter, who also in Jesus has found all that he's longed for and is following him with all of his heart. He comes out with the correct answer, as it were, when Jesus says to the disciples, "Who do you say I am?" He makes this foundational proclamation that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, and he's praised for it. And he's acclaimed as the rock on which the church is going to be built. But even though Peter had the right answer then when he asked the question, he gets it all wrong when Jesus starts talking about going to the cross. He talks about how he's going to go to his death, how he's going to be persecuted and arrested and then be put to death. And Peter wants to stop him. And he turns around and he has the "Get behind me, Satan." So as bad a rebuke as Moses and Aaron got, you can imagine that Peter, following Jesus he's discovered Jesus and given his whole life to following him, then he turns around and calls him Satan. That would be a pretty harsh thing for Peter to hear. He's just kind of secured his place as the first among the apostles, and he's the best one and had the best answer, and Jesus turns around and rebukes him for this. I think what this can tell us is that even if we have our theology right, and we can proclaim the creed and we know what we believe, and that's great. I believe in Jesus, and I can state all of the things right. Peter had the correct answer. He still needed to walk the journey with Jesus and follow him in discipleship, because our faith isn't just about knowing the right things. It's not just understanding who God is and attesting to that with our intellect, but our faith is about following Jesus and walking that journey. And whatever that individual journey that each of us go on, it will mean for us in our different ways going to the cross, as Jesus starts leading Peter to here. And he's leading all the disciples that this is going to be a hard road. And we can't, well, it's not that we can't understand our faith, but faith leads us to then go with Jesus and discover the life that he wants for us, which only comes through walking that path with him. So with Peter, let's not become an obstacle in the Lord's path. Let's not try and simply just stay where we are and say, yeah, this is who I think you are, Jesus, and I just want to hold to that. But let's actually have the courage to follow him on the path that will take us to the cross, and that will take us also into the life that is beyond the cross. So let's allow Jesus to call us through that journey, and have the courage to follow him today and every day that he calls us.